And welcome everyone to this week's episode of Craze's Corner. We have a two-part show this week. We're breaking down my top 10 quarterbacks, ranks 10 through 6 today, 5 through 1 on the next part. Jeff and Will are going to be here to critique my rankings, let me know which guys I got too high, which guys I got too low, and we will make sure we hear both sides of it because I'm sure there's going to be some people that are not going to agree. I'm going to start with a little bit of a surprise. Whereas just outside my top 10 is Anthony Richardson. He's not a guy I was able to get into my top 10. I went through all of the teams. I made projections for each player. So break down their passing yards, touchdowns, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. And I've come to the conclusion, according to the stats, that Anthony Richardson is not in my top 10. And this is due to the fact that, Jonathan Taylor is going to get his work on the ground. And in an offense, I have them projected to score 3 more touchdowns than they scored last year. But with Anthony Richardson's concern as staying healthy and the fact that I don't profile him to be an amazing passer, I don't think he's going to get, high 20s, low 30s passing touchdown numbers. And if him and Jonathan Taylor are splitting that goal line work, I just could not get him quite into this tier. Do you guys think I'm making a mistake here? Would he have made your top 10?
I guess I'll go ahead and kick it off. No, I think I could find 10 other quarterbacks that I'd rather go ahead and have in those slots, only because we don't know what he yet. Coming back from that shoulder injury, so it's not like it was an ankle or a knee. This is a shoulder which he needs.
Yeah. Ask Cam Newton. Ask Cam Newton what it's like to have a shoulder injury.
Right. And then again, you never really see fully what his whole season would have been like. So that's the reason I'd say I think he is one of those guys that we can see easily sliding in there if he has a productive season. So I'm not mad at you for that one.
Yeah, I think like I said, he's got the high upside, but I've seen some people have him like top 3, and I just cannot get behind that at this point. Will, you on the same page there?
Yeah, I think he has to earn himself onto that. And I know, Zach, when you're doing your ratings, you're basing it on the science of fantasy football, and I just don't think there's enough there to justify him being top 10.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. A guy who proved himself last year is going to start out my top 10, and that's a guy who finished as the quarterback 5 last year. That's Jordan Love. I got Jordan Love just sneaking inside my top 10. I think he's a very low-risk player when I look at my breakdown. He's got a decently high upside because he could have, 30-plus touchdowns again. He's not great interception-wise. I think he can bring his interception numbers down a little bit. I have him going from 11 to 9. And if he can stay around that 4,000, 4,100 passing yards, I think that he'll definitely be a top 10 quarterback going into next season. He's got all the weapons. If Christian Watson can stay healthy, this young wide receiver core should be able to take a step forward. And maybe I'm even a little bit too low on Jordan Love at this point, having him at 10. He just finished as 5.
Yeah.
And the wide receiver core is healthy and young, and they should be able to take a step forward. Maybe I'm a little bit low on Jordan Love, but I think he's definitely earned himself a spot. And like I said, I have him as a super low risk rating. So I think he's a great quarterback to target. Jeff, you're shaking your head. You said I have him too low. What are your thoughts on Jordan Love?
I'm thinking that maybe he's just outside of the top 5. I really love his young core of wide receivers. I love the offense that he's in. And we look at it last year, a lot of those interceptions started off earlier during the year, and he progressively got better against top teams. That's the whole thing. So just the growth and the progression of growth is starting to get real comfortable, where the game seemed to be slowing down for him. That's just dangerous, for next year to me. Now having another added person to that running game. Love Aaron Jones, but that whole backfield was in and out, guys being hurt and everything. now with him getting Jacobs back there, I think it's going to kind of step up the offense just to another level, man. So and also being in the NFC North, I don't think that's going to hurt him as well.
Yeah, it'll be some high-scoring games in the NFC North. Will, you're an expert in the NFC North. Do you think Jordan Love will be a top 10 fantasy quarterback?
I think he's top 5 by the end of the season. Fantasy? Yeah, top 5. And I think you have him a little low right now. And I get it, right? Because
just wait till you see who I have at number 9 here. Okay. I got Deshaun Watson, number 9. I'm assuming by both of your faces, you guys would not have Deshaun Watson ahead of Jordan Love.
No.
I have them in the same tier, but I have Deshaun Watson's risk rating as the highest risk rating of any of the quarterbacks, and I got him at a 10 out of 10. He's definitely a high-risk guy, but you look at his finishes in the games that he played, majority of the snaps last season, quarterback 5, quarterback 10, quarterback 8, quarterback 14. And quarterback 27 against Pittsburgh, which is always going to be a tough matchup. So when he was playing, he was good. You look at this team now that doesn't have Nick Chubb, at least to start the season. They've added Jerry Jeudy. David Njoku broke out. And with Amari Cooper already there, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, who I like, I think that this is an offense with Kevin Stefanski that's going to put up points. We just saw them win 11 games last year with 5 different starting quarterbacks. I think Deshaun Watson is going to, he's not going to be what he was in Houston. He's not going to be a top, 3 fantasy quarterback, but all he has to do in this offense is be competent. And that's something I think he's going to do. And if he stays healthy, which is why his risk rating is so high, if he stays healthy, I think he's going to finish season ending being a top 10 quarterback. I do have his consistency a little bit lower than some of these other guys. It's the lowest of my top 10 because I think there is going to be some games like you see in this tough division against Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or Cincinnati where your scores might be a little bit lower. So he's going to have some down weeks, but I think he's going to have some boom weeks. We saw with Joe Flacco at the end of the season. He was good at game managing. I think Deshaun Watson stays healthy. He'll be a top 10 quarterback for fantasy football. If I'm taking Deshaun Watson in drafts, I'm pairing him with somebody else because he is a high-risk guy, but I think he can capitalize on that just by being healthy. That's what he's got to do. He's just got to stay healthy. Will, what do you think of Deshaun Watson?
I'm staying away from Deshaun Watson. It might burn me, but I'm staying away from him. I always think when a team lets go of a quarterback that everybody perceives and has played at a very high level, when they walk away, something's up. Mm-hmm. And I think Houston wasn't the best ran franchise. I don't even know if they're really a good run franchise at this point. But I think Houston looks freaking brilliant.
Yep.
Unloading him, getting cap space, now got a quarterback that is on a rookie deal. And it's just something's not right with Watson. I don't know what it is. I think we can all speculate what's happened in his past, but I'm staying away from him. I'm not touching him.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, you feel the same way?
Yeah, he's outside my top 10, definitely.
Yeah.
I would definitely take Jordan Love way before.
Yeah.
And he's just another guy that's, unfortunately, it's an unproven case. Out of the league for a year, when he turns, wasn't that great. For the first games that he played, he had some games where he looked like he was getting better. Then he had games like he looked like he was regressing. So it's just like, it was up and down. It's not like he didn't have weapons too. So that was the other thing. And then you got Joe Flacco, who comes in literally off the couch. And actually looks like he was a better fit
quarterback
with that team than Deshaun Watson was, man. So, and now again, coming off of that injury, So I'm kind of, that's one of the guys I think if I need a QB 2 or 3, then I'll look at him. But definitely not for a starting quarterback on my fantasy roster.
Yeah, like I said, he's high risk, but I do think, as you said, Joe Flacco, he won games. He looked good. PJ Walker won games. So I think that this team around him with the defense that they have, he's just got to be okay, and the fantasy numbers will come. We'll move on. We're going to go to Dallas here with Dak Prescott as my QB8. Will's shaking his head, and I don't know if he thinks that I'm too high or too low. I don't know which direction he's going to go, but Dak Prescott last year finished as the quarterback 3. He had 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns. I think the yards come down a little bit. I think he'll be more around the 4,300 yards this season. Interceptions might go up a little bit from 9. 9 was kind of a low for him. Maybe he goes back up to around 11 interceptions is what I have him at. And I think the touchdowns will stay around the same. My only concern right now is the CD Lamb issue. If CD Lamb, misses into training camp, misses preseason, and doesn't really get on the field until the season starts, it could be a slow start to the season. I think they'll definitely pick it up, though. They have the chemistry. If he's not on the team, that's a bigger concern. But I think for this point, I think he will be on the team for this year. So I think Dak, age 30, coming off a QB3 season, I think he's pretty safe in my top 10. He is the start of my next tier. Will, you're our, Texas resident. What do we think about Dak Prescott?
You're just starting to get that feeling. You know how some teams going into the feeling is just impending, maybe doom? You're starting to get that here. So you got CD Lamb, who this week wouldn't even do an interview at his kids' camp because he refused. He's not going to talk about his contract. And that's getting real. And it's not just Lamb. They got to sign a couple other guys too. Defense, but the organization's struggling right now. I think what freaked me out this week with Prescott was the walking boot. And there was stories today being talked about that it's a far more serious injury than the Cowboys are letting on. And people should be concerned about Dak's availability for the whole season. Wow. So I think Dak is a top 7 fantasy quarterback. I just don't know if he's that this year. So I'm just telling people, if you take him in your drafts, I would you got to have Rush or Trey Lance as your backup. Because if you draft Dak, you're drafting the Cowboys quarterback position. So you better get that QB2 on their roster, whoever it turns out to be. I think it'll be Trey based on the reporting from minicamp. It'll just be interesting. Like there's something bigger there with his foot, and everybody should be mindful of that.
Yeah, we'll keep that in mind. We'll see how it looks coming into training camp, and if he's out there or if it's still an issue. Right now, I'm operating as he will be okay. For training camp, but we'll see. Jeff, what do you think about Dak Prescott?
I can give a hell about that walking boot. CD Lamb ain't there. That's a whole nother story. So that's my thing. If CD Lamb is not there, then you're looking at the equivalent of Derek Carr. Bottom line. So Derek Carr is in your top 10. Then there it is. But without CD Lamb, to me, Dak Prescott will be just a mid quarterback.
Yeah. For now, CD Lamb is on the roster, and like I said, I can't imagine that changes this season. Maybe that's different next year when they have to pay Micah Parsons, CD Lamb, and Dak Prescott. That could be a thing, but for this season, I think at the moment, CD Lamb's on the roster, so that's how I'm treating it. We're going to move on to another guy who's wide receiver 2. This guy's wide receiver 2 is in that same sort of situation as CD Lamb. He wants to get paid, and that's T. Higgins and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is my quarterback 7, same tier as Dak Prescott. He's coming off, obviously, the injured season. It was a rough start with the calf injury, but once he started to get it going, it looked good, and then he got hurt again. So I think Joe Burrow, they don't have Joe Mixon anymore, but Zach Moss and Chase Brown should be able to hopefully be serviceable. They're not going to be Joe Mixon, but they can be serviceable in this offense. And then Joe Burrow throwing to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, maybe Jermaine Burton can have a breakout year. I think Joe Burrow's set up to have an amazing season, and I have him as my QB7. In 2022, he finished as a QB4, and that was when he had 4,500 yards. The year before that, he was a QB7. So I think in this range is definitely where I think he should be. Like I said, he's in the same tier as Dak Prescott for me, but I have him one rank ahead of him. I actually have him scoring 0.3 more fantasy points on the season than Dak Prescott, looking at my rankings. So it's really close, like I said. But Joe Burrow, he doesn't have the issue of his wide receiver one might not be there. And like I said, T. Higgins signed his contract or his franchise tag, so he is going to be there. So Joe Burrow, he has insane upside when it comes to passing. He doesn't have that rushing ability that some of these other quarterbacks that are ranked higher than him have. But I think he's an overall safe guy. Week in, week out, he should be consistent. And I think he's a good guy. Probably that you guys will agree on more than the previous two that I've said in Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Yes. Fully. I think that's a good starting point in the preseason is number 7 or number 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, he doesn't have the rushing upsides that some of the guys we're going to talk about later have. Yeah. And I think it's a good spot for Joe Burrow to be in that quarterback 5 to 7 range. Jeff, you feel the same?
Yeah, as long as he's healthy, then with me, he's fine because they've got some other receivers as well. They got the young guy, Andre Sovius or something like that. There's always got another guy that is able to step in that he's able to connect with. So, they got one of the most solid wide receiver core, even if Higgins doesn't stick around. That's why they drafted Jermaine Burton. So, to me, he's another guy, as long as he's healthy, he definitely deserves to be in that position.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll move on to the last guy for this show to round out my 10 through 6 rankings, and that's going to be Jalen Hurts, who finished as the QB2 last year, QB3 the year before, and QB9 the year before that. I think we're going to see a downtick in his rushing touchdowns. He was at 15 last year, 13 the year before that, and I don't think that's a number that's going to be repeated, especially now with Saquon Barkley there and without Jason Kelce. If the tush push becomes any more inefficient, you're just going to give the ball to Saquon Barkley at that point. You're not going to risk a Jalen Hurts injury. I have him, for still double-digit rushing touchdowns. The passing touchdowns have never been what's gotten him there. So I think Jalen Hurts just takes a little bit of a step back. He has the rushing upside that Joe Burrow doesn't have, and that's why he has, fallen ahead of Joe Burrow in my rankings. He's got super high upside. If for whatever reason they can make this tush push as efficient as it was before, then he could very well be a top 3 quarterback again. But right for now, I'm bringing that back a little bit. Saquon he demands more touches in the red zone than DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell were getting last year. So that's really the only reason I see him having a little bit of a regression. Touchdown-wise, I'm excited to see what he looks like in Kellen Moore's offense for the Eagles this year as well. Could be, a little bit more to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, which could maybe boost his touchdown numbers to maybe get higher than 23, which for a quarterback who's top 2 and top 3 is extremely low. So let's see what he does there. Jeff, are you excited about Jalen Hurts, even though the rushing touchdowns may come down a little bit?
Yeah, because it's weird. It's almost like this is the year where I don't know what to expect from him because it's like with Kellen Moore's offense, they could pass the ball more. You saw them they drafted I believe 2 or 3 receivers as well. One real tall guy, I can't remember his name. Then Anais, can't remember his full name either. But guys in the 4th and 5th round that could actually be sprinkled in that offense. So it just looks like there could be a lot of gadget stuff. I can see him dumping the ball off to Barkley as well on passes. So it's just I do not know what to expect from this offense this season. Do I expect it to be good? I expect it to be okay. But I don't know what to expect as far as Hurts, what he's going to give us as far as passing. Because, I'm looking at the tush push. It's probably going to be, pushed back a little bit and let Saquon do his thing. So it's difficult. Wait, who was the other running back that they drafted as well? They drafted a rookie.
Shipley out of Clemson.
Yeah.
So they through the kitchen sink, it seemed like, in this draft at offense. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Put all these pieces together, because when you look at the Eagles before, you kind of knew who they had. It was Smith, Brown, and whoever the hell they had in the backfield at the time they wanted to do something. And that was it. Maybe Dallas Goedert here or there. But now you got just a host of dudes. So I don't know how the ball is going to be distributed. I don't know what Kellen Moore is planning on doing.
Yeah, their offense got stagnant when you look at the second half of last year, but I think that's what they brought Kellen Moore in for. So that should definitely help that. Will, anything you want to say before we end this show and move on to the top 5?
This is where I would have had Jordan Love at 6 and Jalen Hurts at 10.
Wow.
Just by the way those seasons, or I would have moved Jalen Hurts down. I don't know all the way to 10, but I definitely
would have been ahead of Dak and Watson in your rankings.
And right now I'd put Jordan Love in front of Jalen Hurts, because I think Jordan Love is definitely ascending. I think Jeff's right. There's a little bit of risk of going with Jalen Hurts as your QB1 this year, because you don't know what you're going to get. And so I think I know what I'm going to get with Jordan Love. I don't know what I'm really going to get with Jalen Hurts at this point in time.
That's fair. I think you definitely agree. It is a new offense, but I am excited to see the passing game. And like I said, the rushing touchdowns will come down a little bit, but that will end our quarterbacks 10 through 6 rankings. We have 1 through 5 on the next part of this show, so make sure you definitely go check out that episode. You're not going to want to miss it. We have one more guy in this same tier as the past 4 to talk about before we get into those top 4 guys. So you definitely want to go check that out. Thanks, Jeff and Will, for joining. We'll talk to you in the next one.
Spoiler alert, Russell Wilson.